In the commission packet for the May 13th City Commission meeting, agenda item 4 is the following. Consider requests for amending the plat of the existing subdivision of the Gooch Second Edition to accept the dedication of Waxwing Street in the location where it has been built and used, and abandon the location of Murray Street that is identified just to the north of Waxwing Street. Okay, to understand this first, let's look at a map of the City of Mason to figure out where this applies. And the property under consideration is approximately here, owned by the Mason Gospel Church. It's alongside Highway 386 going north, or Bluebonnet Road as it's shown on the map. And we should establish two principles right up front. The Mason Gospel Church should be able to sell their property. There's no arguing about that. They own it, they can sell it, they have a buyer, it'd be good. And development of this property would be good for the City of Mason. So what's the problem? The problem is in this statement from city officials. According to Local Government Code 212016, the municipal authority for approving plats, which is the City Commission, may approve and issue an amending plat, and that is what we're being asked to consider, to correct an error in a real property description on the preceding plat and other reasons which apply in this situation. So this is the language we received from the city, part of it anyway, concerning this issue. At this point, we should ask, what is Texas state law for amending plats? Since that language we just read references amending plats in Texas state law. The Texas state law for amending a plat, a subdivision plat, is in Chapter 212 of the Texas Local Government Code, Section 212016. The municipal authority responsible for approving plats may approve and issue an amending plat, which may be recorded and is controlling over the preceding plat without vacation of that plat. Vacation means to void or get rid of. If the amending plat is signed by the applicants only and is solely for one or more of the following purposes. Okay, that language turns out to be important. 212.016 lists the 11 allowed ways to amend a plat. 212.016 gives a city 11 legal ways to amend a plat. City officials have chosen to use number 3, to correct an error in a real property description shown on the preceding plat. Okay, good. We have to follow the language of the law. That's always true. So the language is to correct an error in a real property description, a description of property shown on the preceding plat. So here's what we can do. We can find a language describing property, its meets and bounds and corners, on the preceding plat. There has to be an error in the property description when the plat was filed. This error has to be shown on the preceding plat. So what is the preceding plat? The preceding plat is the original plat filed April 3rd, 1906 in the county deed records. And you can see a photograph of it right here. As you can see, it was done by hand because that's how they did county records back then. And you can see the grid lines and street lines where the plat lays out the subdivision of the second Gooch edition. And this plat has the property description. It has the surveyor's notes and the description again of the corners, the meets, and the bounds. It describes the property. That's the property description you have to work with right there. Now the county surveyor, as you'll see in a minute, saw no errors in that property description in 1934. This is a map produced by the county surveyor of the City of Mason dated May 29th, 1934. And the second Gooch edition is right there, as shown by the county surveyor. So if we blow that up a little bit, there is the Gooch edition as laid out by the county surveyor. So obviously he had to work from those documents in the books in 1906 and then lay it out again in the surveyed map. So this is the Gooch second edition. No one has shown or suggested there were errors in the preceding plat in the way the Gooch second edition was described in its original survey. People have talked about Waxwing and Murray Streets. The issues with these streets happened after 1906. Waxwing Street, apparently the city paved this land without the owner dedicating its use to the city. The city probably paved this illegally. But these are not errors in the real property description shown in the preceding plat. So why is this important? City officials should follow the law as the legislature wrote it. These statutes are important parts of our property rights. People who buy property rely on the city following the law. Now, what about Mr. Young's email, which was included in our packet? Here's an email from David Young to Eli Castillo, March 6, 2019. Let's look a little closer at it. If you read this email, alarm bells will start going off all over the place. First, Mr. Young says amending the plat will resolve most of the issues. So immediately, we're thinking about that. Most of the issues have been resolved. What issues have been resolved? What issues are still unresolved? So it begs that question. Next, if we read farther, we see that the City Commission has not formally accepted the dedication of Waxwing Street. Okay, that's a problem. Nor has it abandoned Murray Street. Okay, that sounds like a problem also. And there are people unwilling or uninterested in signing the applications. Okay, now we got more issues to think about. What's the problem with Waxwing? What's the problem with Murray? And where is Murray Street anyway? And you have owners unwilling to sign the application. So, and furthermore, we said section 212016 covers amending plats. Mr. Young now makes it contingent on Mr. Lemon's legal opinion on whether that works. Well, we already saw what 212016 allows for correcting errors in preceding plats. There's the original plat. There's the survey by the county surveyor showing the plat. So we know what that says. We have a set of surveys presented to the commission. How do these apply to the earlier discussion? Let's go back to the map. There's the city of Mason. Remember, we're looking roughly at that area. Let's zoom in on that area. Here's the field, largely owned by the Mason Gospel Church, that they would like to subdivide and sell lots. To look at the survey issues, we got to zoom in on this issue up here. So remember, Waxwing has never been dedicated as a city street. Illegally paving Waxwing took place years after 1906. And the city has never abandoned Murray Street. So those are the issues you want to keep in mind. So here's the field again. We're going to zoom in on this area right up here. So let's zoom in. Here's the land. We're going to look at if we superimpose Mr. Lemon's survey on this property. Here's what we get. And the area in the black rectangle is Murray Street. In the original plat, that was the original plat. City didn't use it. They've never abandoned it. But the plat apparently had a correct real estate description of Murray Street. The corners, the links, that sort of thing. Nobody said that was incorrect yet. And if we keep looking and superimpose the survey again, we're going to see a line where the city paved an area called Waxwing Street. You can see it outlined there in black. But it's never actually been given to the city as a street, or there's no record of it anyway. So apparently the city paved that land and named it Waxwing Street, but the owner has never dedicated that property to the city. Now that's a problem that we created, but it's not a problem with the underlying plat or the real estate description in the underlying plat. So if we put both of these together, we have Murray Street on top in that black box, which was laid out in the 1906 plat, never been abandoned. And then we have what's probably an illegal street, Waxwing, which the city paved and named, but never actually received permission or dedication to use as a street. So we got several problems, but no one has suggested errors in the original preceding plat. All of this happened after the 1906 plat. It is the preceding plat, and 212.016 only allows correcting errors in the preceding plat. So in summary, can the Mason Gospel Church sell its property? Yes. Can the property be developed? Yes. But we have to follow state law to do this. We can't rewrite state law just because we like the outcome. These laws are part of everyone's property rights. The City Commission has to decline this request. If we're going to do it, we got to do it legally and properly. Let's think about amending the plat. Again, the 1906 plat. Can the city use any other parts of 212.016 to amend the plat? Remember, 212.016 covers amending plats. This is a copy of a document we got from the city in the commission's package. It has the text for 212.016 amending plat. There's page 2. So let's walk through the other possible ways of amending it. First, you could correct an error in a course or distance shown on the preceding plat. Well, no one's alleged one, and even if they found one, it probably is not going to help the church. You could add a course or a distance that was omitted on the preceding plat, and again, that's not going to help the church. Nobody suggested that. Here's number 3, which we've now looked at in detail. You could correct an error in a real property description shown on the preceding plat, but remember that description is 1906, and the description of property in 1906 seems to be correct. You could indicate monuments, etc. Well, we're not dealing with monuments here. You could show the location or character of a monument has been changed. Again, we're not doing that. You could correct a clerical error back in 1906, but we haven't seen any of those. And again, even if there were clerical errors, it's unlikely that's going to help. Number 7 is you could correct an error in courses and distances of lot lines between 2 adjacent lots, and it gives you 4 criteria that have to be followed, but the church is not trying to do that. 8, you could relocate a lot line to eliminate an inadvertent encroachment of a building. Nope, that is not being suggested. You could relocate one or more lot lines between one or more adjacent lots. And again, there's 3 conditions that have to be satisfied. That's not on the table. Number 10, you could make changes to the plat to create 6 or fewer lots, but again, there are 3 conditions that have to be satisfied there. Not what we're trying to do. 11, you could replat one or more lots on an existing street, and it's got 4 conditions that you have to satisfy, and they all have to be satisfied because the conjunction is and. And notably, number D specifically says you cannot create a new street by doing this. So where does that leave us? Here's the email, the document from the city that was in the package. We've ruled out number 1, errors in courses and directions. Number 2, adding courses and directions. Number 3, error in a real estate description in the preceding plat. Number 4 and 5 deal with monuments. We're not doing that. Number 6, clerical errors in the 1906 plat. Nobody's alleged that. Number 7, errors in courses and distances, and it has conditions that have to be solved. We're not dealing with that. Number 8, relocate a line due to building encroachment. Well, no, we're not doing that. Number 9, we could relocate one or more lines between adjacent lots, and then they give you 3 conditions that have to be satisfied. That's not on the table. Number 10, you could make changes to the plat to create 6 or fewer lots. No, we're not doing that. And number 11, you could replat lots fronting on an existing street if all 4 conditions are met and it prohibits creating a new street. So we kind of covered all the parts, the ways you can amend a plat in 210016. And here's that. This is the plat we have to go look at. It was filed in 1906. We have to consider the real estate description in that plat. The legislature does not talk about amending it for things that happen later. That seems to be completely ruled out. So, other parts of 212.016 seem very unlikely as a basis for amending the plat. And the city should absolutely follow the law in this subdivision application. We should not try to bend or rewrite the law just because we like the outcome. That is a really, really bad practice, and we don't want to try to do that.